It's May, it's grilling season, and how barbecue is seasoned and sauced matters in the South, and it varies from city to city. Warning, this episode will make you hungry. If you're ready, I'll meet you at the table.
I'm Lainie.
And I'm Laura Beth,
And we are
Steel Magnolias.
the strength of steel with the grace of a magnolia.
We are here to have uplifting conversations about life in the South.
And we've got plenty of room at our table. So pull up a chair.
Welcome back to the Steel Magnolias podcast. You've been fair warned that this episode might make you hungry, and so we're going to dive deep into dry rub versus wet or sauced ribs today.
Ribs, yes.
And, you know, we chose this because there is a very large celebration of all things barbecue in our home state of Tennessee. In Memphis, Tennessee, it is Memphis in May. And Memphis is very known for dry rub ribs,
Yes.
which we're going to talk about later today in this episode. But, you know, I was astonished. There are over 100 barbecue restaurants in Memphis, Tennessee.
Wow.
I can't even wrap my mind around that. Over
Wow.
100. So they just usually put 101 plus when
That's
they
funny, yeah.
mention that. It has been named the barbecue pork capital of the world. P-O-R-K. I didn't want you to think I just said port, because it is on the Mississippi. Pork capital. And according to MemphisTravel.com, since Memphis is a port town, that is why barbecue cooks in the city have enjoyed an even wider variety of ingredients
Oh, that
to
makes
slab
sense.
on, plus even having access to molasses that was shipped up the mighty Mississippi.
Which is big in Memphis barbecue.
So that kind of became the Memphis style, warm spices balanced by sweet and tomatoey sauce. So, you know, I just kind of wanted to touch on Memphis to begin with, again, since it's Memphis in May. They are going to be celebrating all month long with all different expressions of that. And slabs of Memphis best ribs generally do come rubbed with dry spices. Each joint kind of has their own combination.
That's right. Probably
Some of
secret.
it's secretive that we won't even have ourselves to disclose. But Rendezvous might be one of the, if you've heard of barbecue restaurants, one of the ones, if you've heard, that you might have heard of. So Charlie Vargos's, yes, Charlie Vargos's Rendezvous, is one of the oldest and most famous advocates of the dry rub. And the restaurant's rub nods to its founder's Greek heritage.
There it is again. Those Greeks.
We talked about Greek heritages, or the Greek influence in Birmingham, Alabama, on several restaurants there. And here it is again, right here in Memphis, Tennessee. So each Memphis barbecue joint concocts its own sauces as well. And I just wanted to mention that the 2021 winner went to Myron Mixon. He's from Georgia. He is a 4-time world champion.
Wow.
And he has a cooking school.
How fun.
So if you're in anywhere near that area, you might want to check this out. Registration is open for next year. Okay, so 2023. So obviously he's good, y'all.
Got to plan ahead.
I'll put a link in our show notes, but Jack's Old South Cooking School, that's what it's called, will be held at his home in Unadilla, Georgia.
Okay.
That's south of Macon, directly west of Savannah,
Okay.
if that helps you at all with your Georgia geography. It starts with a meet and greet dinner on Friday night. Class starts at 9 a.m. on Saturday with whole hog.
Oh my gosh. This would be so fun.
You'll move on to beef and pork ribs, chicken, beef brisket, pork butts, and whole pork shoulder. The class ends on Sunday at 3 o'clock. And the school is for the novice, the enthusiast, the trained chef, as well as the barbecue competitor. Recipes are the same, the difference being who you'll be feeding.
Wow.
I just thought that was
sounds
so
fun.
cool. So I don't know if he's going to come
I
out
wonder how much it costs.
2020.
Did you say?
I didn't see.
That would be really
And I didn't
fun.
see how many spots. I don't know how small
Yeah.
it is. I mean, it's
That
in
would
his
be
home.
super cool if
you know?
it was, pretty intimate where you could ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
I kind of get a feel that there is some interaction. I mean, there's a meet and greet that it kind of starts with. So
Yeah.
he's wanting to at least engage with everyone at least at some point. But I'm kind of curious to see if Myron Mixon comes out the 2022 champion.
That is so fun.
And yeah, I mean they do all different categories at this
At
Memphis,
the Memphis
in May.
yeah, with different. I mean, it's a lot of teams that
and different
participate in different categories.
whole hog, shoulder, ribs. They even have a green grilling award, which is awarded to the team that collected the most recyclables.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay.
They've got turkey smoke, tomato sauce, mustard sauce, best t-shirt. I was like, this is
Best
hilarious.
t-shirt.
There are some funny barbecue t-shirts
Oh my
out
gosh.
there.
Do you remember Mom got Philip an apron that said, "Do you mind if I smoke?"
Which he still wears to this
I
day.
love it.
Yeah.
I think it's so funny.
Anyway, so yeah, that is just setting the table as to the reason why we wanted to do this
Right now.
For now.
Well,
So-
let's zoom out.
Okay.
And first just talk about a really broad scope of ribs.
Yeah. It's confusing, isn't it? A bit.
I think can be very confusing because I still kind of think of my meat as coming on styrofoam in the
For sure.
grocery store.
Yes. Yes.
And not literally thinking of cartilage,
yes.
membranes.
Yes.
This is a body part
This is
of
a
an
body
animal.
part. Yes.
So, and another total side note, but as a massage therapist, I'm always fascinated by the body.
Yeah. Body parts.
And if we were
working.
to go down onto all fours, for instance,
Okay.
on your hands and knees,
Yeah.
our musculature is so similar to animals,
Really?
like, your dog, your horse,
Yeah.
all of that. And that's just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And so when I'm looking at a picture, as I am right now, of a pig,
Uh-huh.
and, there's the spine at the back,
Yeah.
and the ribs going down, same as we would be if we were on our all fours.
Tabletop position for those of you that are
Exactly.
used to a Pilates or yoga class.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see where the different cuts are, like, because I don't always think of meat as that.
I don't either.
So let's just look at, first of all, I guess any animal that has ribs, you could cook those ribs. I mean, you could have lamb ribs. We're not talking about that today.
Right.
But for the most part, we're talking pork and beef.
Yes.
In fact, I just focused on pork.
Okay. Yeah.
But beef ribs are wonderful too.
Mm-hmm.
I just was kind of focusing more on these
Yeah.
southern styles,
Yeah.
which is often heavily pork.
Yes.
So another part that is, I don't know how to say, like, there's different cuts of ribs,
Right.
and there's different ways to prepare ribs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's just start with cuts
Okay.
first.
Okay.
So you have baby back ribs. Most people have heard of that term.
Oh, I thought you were going to say most people have heard the Chili's commercial.
you thought I was
love
gonna
my baby
sing.
back, baby. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think they've used that in probably a decade. But
Well, we all remember it. In fact, yes, I was thinking of it this morning. So baby back ribs are high. Okay, again, if you're looking at a
yeah.
drawing of a pig, they're high up to close to the spine. Whereas
Yeah.
St. Louis cut ribs are further down.
Right.
And then spare ribs are even further down.
Okay. I
Okay.
did not know that about spare ribs for sure. Okay.
So, baby back ribs are sometimes called loin back or just back ribs.
Okay.
If you've ever heard those terms, that's all baby back.
Okay.
When we talk about Memphis style ribs, they are baby back ribs.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. Memphis equals baby back.
Yes.
Okay.
Pork spare ribs, again, lower down on the pig. Those are quite large ribs and can extend all the way to the front of the animal, and they kind of go, they're quite fatty,
Okay.
which gives them a lot of flavor.
Flavor.
Yeah,
Yep.
a lot of times people think of fat content equals bad, but I often think fat content equals flavor.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's going to cook off.
Sure.
As you're,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so spare ribs are great for smoking because you're going to low and slow.
Yeah.
And let that flavor really.
Okay.
The St. Louis style ribs are actually from the same part of the rib cage as spare ribs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the preparation and technique used to prepare them that makes them special.
Okay.
They're also quite fatty, but so flavorful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's country style pork ribs. So country style ribs are found toward the upper shoulder end of the loin.
Okay.
They have the highest meat to bone ratio. And you really need like a knife and fork to eat country style ribs.
Okay. So they're not falling off the bone for sure.
Right.
Okay. They're like the opposite. Okay.
So there's more meat, but this is also a great smoker choice. Or you can cook these in the oven or even in a crock pot. But those are the main 4 styles or cuts of ribs.
Okay. Very helpful.
Anything else you want to talk about that, or do we dive into preparations?
No, I think that's very helpful. So summarize that for us one more time. So
so you've got baby back ribs, pork spare ribs. I'm only talking pork.
Yep.
Spare ribs, St. Louis style ribs, and then country style pork ribs.
Okay.
There's your 4 basic cuts.
Okay. Now, dry versus sauced or wet.
Okay. So a dry, if you were on your first date and ribs is the food, you may want to go Memphis style because they're obviously not going to be as messy with all the sauce.
Yeah. Surely there's very few people out there that had
do that on
sauced
a first
ribs
date,
on a first date.
Yeah,
surely
that would be so nerve-wracking for me. Okay, so the dry rubs.
Yeah.
Again, there's lots of different ways people make this, but basically it's a lot of paprika.
Yeah, and this is just spices. This is just
salt, pepper.
This is a dry versus a liquid marinade. That's what this all boils down to.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, just, it could be lots of different things, but garlic powder, mild chili powder, celery seeds, brown sugar, cumin, dry mustard, allspice. I mean, you would see lots of different coriander, things that people might put in their rub.
Yeah.
But the rub really makes a nice, I wouldn't go so far as to say bark like on a brisket,
say a
but
brine.
it makes it just a nice, the flavor really gets in there.
And it's going to make it crispy. It's going to create a crust would be probably too strong of a word. But yes, it's going to give it a little bit crispier of an outer layer versus the wet.
And I thought this was funny. Depending on the place, there sometimes is sauce served with it. Like I thought.
I know, that makes it confusing.
So confusing. So you're cooking it with dry rub.
Right.
But then you're eating it. Some people don't want any sauce.
Right.
Some people want a sauce on the side.
Yeah.
Or, there's...
I always like to try something without a sauce first.
Just to see what is the flavor of this meat.
That seems unfair to go ahead and try it with an exterior sort of component.
I know.
I agree. Off the bat.
I'm like that with pretty much everything. Like, let me just see what it tastes like without.
Yeah.
And then I even want to taste the sauce separate. Like, what does it taste like?
Yeah. That's why I don't salt things immediately.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's going to need some salt. But
maybe it's not.
Let's try it first without that.
But a lot of the sauces, like you mentioned, that you're going to see in Memphis are going to frequently include molasses.
Mm-hmm. From that mighty Mississippi, like I said. Yeah. Yeah. And you could even probably put the dry rubs that you just described, the many ingredients, you could kind of even put them into dry rubs into categories. Like you could have a sweet dry rub, a spicy dry rub.
Sure, you could have
savory,
kind of an Asian flair. You could have
there's
herbal,
all different, like lots of oregano or herb induced or infused. Yeah, yeah. So
many directions you could go.
And obviously we love to think of homemade being the way to go. But I found that there's actually from Grilling Dad, that's a website source I found, some really good store-bought options out there too. Their top pick from grillinggdad.com was Cowtown because they said they produced the quality and flavor. They're blended in the U.S. They just loved that Cowtown. They have like they're contest winners. They're gluten free. They're great per ounce price, so you're not having to spend a lot of money on a big rack of ribs. But some other brands they mentioned were Killer Hogs, Traeger, Lambert's, Meat Church. So there's some really good store-bought options, I guess, out there too.
When you just mentioned Traeger, I was thinking we could do a whole episode on different kinds of smokers.
True.
Because there's such variety in styles of smokers. The Traeger, one of the things I hear that's so wonderful about the Traeger is it's like a pellet style. Mm-hmm. And so you buy these pellets, but it keeps it going really well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
unlike charcoal that you're always having to tend,
Yeah.
it really keeps it going with
Yeah.
this.
That'd be a good starter probably for a lot of people. I would think.
Yeah.
If you're learning.
Because that's one thing.
smokers.
I have a off-brand of a green egg. And I'm not sure if it's as sealed as well as the green egg. Because
Okay.
I have a hard time keeping it going.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it could also be user error. I'm not a
Well.
pit master. Just to add a little more confusion into this topic. Some people have heard of Kansas City ribs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that's just a subset of St. Louis ribs. So if somebody's saying, "Oh, I've heard of Kansas City ribs," where does that fall? It does fall in the St. Louis ribs style.
Well, and the Kansas City style dry rub would be a 2-to-1 ratio of brown sugar to paprika. So
Ooh, I didn't know that. That
imagine
sounds good to me.
lots of brown sugar in it. Yeah. Yeah, to not just paprika, but to all of those other spices that you said, like the garlic,
It's
salt,
going to be
pepper.
heavy on the brown sugar side.
Yeah. Okay, so that's dry rub. Now talking a little bit more about sauced ribs or wet rub.
St. Louis-y style.
Again, we're talking about in the preparation, the cooking. Any of this can be sauced after it's
right.
cooked, but a true wet rib is going to contain a lot of the same seasonings that we just mentioned in the dry rub, but with more of a liquid base, like a vinegar, and olive oil, sometimes beer even is used.
I think often in that St. Louis style, it's like a thin tomatoey based,
yes,
ketchup-y based,
Yeah.
kind of.
But not quite a marinade, more like a paste, because it needs
Thicker.
to stay on the meat to
Right.
cook. You definitely don't want it to just roll off. So the juices and the acids in this wet rub are going to help break down the meat, preparing it to absorb the flavor. There's a lot of opinions out there, so some of y'all are already rolling your eyes because you're like, dry rub's better than this wet, So the meat will soak in the mixture for several hours, and chicken and pork in particular can benefit actually from wet rubs because they do tend to dry out.
For sure.
So even if you're in the dry rub camp, you got to acknowledge the fact that meats that dry out quickly sometimes can benefit from a wet rub. Because
In fact, some recipes even will have you kind of mopping this stuff on as it's cooking.
Good
like
point.
You continue to go in every hour and a half and mop a little more of your,
and she really does mean mop,
literally.
like a mop, like not like this other, like, oh, there's a pampered chef sort of. No, like a mop.
I love the videos I've seen of some of the true pit masters doing whole hog.
Oh my gosh, like
It
a
is
Rodney Scott.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yes, they literally have a cotton
Yes.
big huge mop
Yeah.
that they're literally mopping this whole
Which seems so disgusting
animal
because
carcass.
because all of us, if you have one of those mops like we're talking about, not like a Swiffer, like an actual cotton.
Well, this hadn't
old
been
school
used
mop.
on any dirty
Well,
floors.
that's what I'm saying though.
Yeah, but you think of
that's
it
what
as
we think of.
it's been in dirty water.
Yes, we think of how hard it is to clean those nasty mops, which is why the Miracle Mop even came to be. Yeah. Anyway, it is truly interesting to watch
I
the
got
preparation.
Philip a little tiny from Moonlight Barbecue in Owensboro, Kentucky. They have great things if you're ever in the area. Stop there and
Where is that at?
Owensboro,
yeah,
Kentucky. And so they have wonderful barbecue, but they also have sauces, and they have a little bitty mop you can buy for, mopping just a small piece of meat, not a whole hog.
That's so awesome. And we didn't mention this, but we did an entire episode on Southern
sauces.
On sauces.
Barbecue sauces.
I'll link to that in our show notes since we're literally just talking about the preparation today. If you want to know a lot about sauces, I'll link to that.
Yeah, and there's even one of the things that you see in the Carolinas is a lot more of a mustard vinegar versus tomato vinegar.
Yeah.
Tomato-based sauces. They do this with ribs as well.
Yep.
Where they'll sauce up more of a mustard-based.
Yeah, a golden sauce.
Style.
Yeah. So, whether you're dry or wet, both can come out wonderful.
Yes.
Wetter is not necessarily better. The moisture on the surface, it needs to evaporate before a sear can start to develop. So I think
soaking in, hopefully. It's soaking into the meat.
I think personally, if you like a sauced meat, do a dry rub
and then sauce it after.
I
love it like that.
Because dousing them in liquid beforehand doesn't necessarily work for every kind of meat. And a dry rub, naturally being dry, is going to put you on a faster track to that sort of caramelized exterior.
You are making me hungry.
That I think is just so good.
Well, one of the things that's really fun about summer gatherings to me is even just the casualness to a lot of things where people's clothing is, you're in shorts and t-shirts, and how fun to do a gathering where you're making ribs. You just put paper towels out on the table. Reminds me of the same idea of like throwing out the newspaper and doing a crawfish boil or something like that, where it's just casual and yummy and everybody's just knows, okay, we're going to be using paper towels and
it draws you
not
in.
trying to be kosher with our linen today. And there's great conversation that comes out of that.
It's true.
So,
because you do naturally want to be near the goodness, the good smells that are coming out. Like we were even talking before we hit
and even
record.
the funny interactions of it getting on you a little bit. And
that's
you
true.
wouldn't want to eat this if you're in a sundress or something. But if it's a casual gathering, this might be a fun thing to cook and serve. And I know in our local grocery stores, they will often be smoking ribs on holidays.
That's what I was going to say.
Outside.
Yes.
So like Memorial Day, 4th of July, you just think you're running to go get a couple of things at the grocery store and that smell draws you in.
It hits you and you're like, oh.
Our mom's done that before where she's come home and been like, they were smoking ribs and I just couldn't help myself. I bought a half rack.
That is so awesome. Yeah, so there's that option too. Don't feel the pressure of having to do this yourself. Yeah. So good. Well, thank you for bringing this topic
that would be a fun
to the table.
Summer subject.
It's very, very seasonal, very on point for what's happening now in the South.
And we're hoping to make a trip to Memphis soon, so maybe we can try some yummy dry rub.
Yeah.
I do think Rendezvous is mostly at this point in time overrun with tourists. Like it's just so known as the tourist spot, so maybe we can find
We'll pick the other 99 that are available.
Right. We have 99 other choices. Though I've eaten at Rendezvous and it was excellent. So
I have too. Yeah, it was very good. But I'd be willing to try the other places because I can tell there's probably not a lot of ones where you can go wrong. All right. Well, follow us on Instagram if you haven't already at Steel Magnolias Podcast, because our Memphis trip that will be down the road, will be documenting lots of things there as well. Things that go beyond what we have time to discuss here on the podcast. Thank you to our Patreon supporters that give us monthly donations. We are so grateful for you. And if you'd like to learn more about how you can join that community and get perks from us every month, including bonus content, check out patreon.com/steelmagnolias. And with that, I'll say, Lainie, peace be with you.
And also with y'all.